Good afternoon, everybody. Joseph Miranda, broker and owner of Miranda Executive Realty, here to talk today about our newest training, our newest installment of Ask the Broker. Before we get started, let's take care of a little bit of housekeeping here. Number one, our shameless plug. So for real estate agents that are not agents of MX Realty, or for an MX Realty agent that is trying to share our company, you can always just scan this QR code, and then later on in the depending on the platform, whether you'll be able to find a link somewhere, probably in the chats or the comments. Last thing, disclaimer. So I am a broker. I am the owner of this company, Miranda Executive Realty. I've been in real estate since roughly about 2003 to different degrees. But everything I talk about here, I mean, it is stuff that I practice personally. It's nothing that I talk about is necessarily theory, right? But anything that I give, that's I'm not giving legal advice. I'm not giving accounting advice. The advice that I give here is strictly from the position of a broker or a real estate agent. I am not an accountant. I am not an attorney. So take that for what it's worth. So now the housekeeping's out of the way. Let's go ahead and jump into it. What we're going to talk today is the virtual edge, right? Something that happened with me, when COVID happened. So before COVID, it was very difficult to do things virtually, at least for myself personally. I wasn't a fan of virtual. Everything I wanted to do in person. COVID happened. They had it where you couldn't even go into the office anymore. They had locked us down, said you can't go to the office anymore. So we had to shift our business model, and the way that we shifted it was, by trying to figure out, okay, how do we do virtually what we've been conditioned and trained to do physically, right? And it is totally possible. It is 100% possible. At that time, we had, so prior to COVID, we had 2 real estate offices. We had one in Coral Springs, and then we had one in Fort Lauderdale. COVID happened, people stopped coming in, people stopped being able to come in, so it didn't make sense to renew the leases. I also had a small team. When COVID started, I think I had 4, maybe 5 real estate agents on my team at that time. Even the agents on my team stopped coming into the office. There were days, weeks, maybe even months where I would just sit in the office literally alone, and I'm like, well, why do I have all this space if nobody's coming in? Right? We didn't know when COVID was going to end. We didn't know when we were going to be, released to go back to that normal life. So as my leases kind of came up for renewal, I just shut them down one at a time. I have a property management company as well. And actually at the time, I closed that office as well. So during COVID, I closed at one point, I closed 3 offices during COVID, and we've never looked back. And I don't think there really is any reason to look back. A lot of this was through trial and error. So what we're going to talk about today is, how do I operate not only my company from a virtual standpoint, but how do we also operate and run a team? I am winding back my team now, where I'm doing more coaching, mentoring, management stuff. I do have a small team still, but I've really found this is really something that I'm much more passionate, and I enjoy doing a lot more, is teaching, building people, helping them to just become better and take themselves to the next level. So everything I teach, everything I look at is pretty much always going to be based on the Pareto principle, right? The Pareto principle, if you're an agent in the office, you've heard me say it enough, right? That 20% of your progress, or 20% of your growth, comes from 80% of the things that you do. And then 80% of your progress and growth comes from the other 20% that you do. So what we want to focus on is those high leverage activities. What we want to look at are those high leverage activities. Once, when you're an agent, there's a 20% that leads to 80% of your results. And then when you become a team leader, or even a broker, there's a different set of that 20% that leads to the 80% of your results. And we're going to talk about all of that to a certain degree, right? So What we've done is we've broken this training down into 5 separate areas. Not necessarily, I mean, kind of in an order, but there's also going to be a little bit of overlap and a little bit of, coming back to this one in order to achieve this one over here. The first part of the framework is going to always be people, right? You can't do anything without people, right? Then we're going to talk about the platform, processes, having your processes, performance, and then positivity. You probably know where that one's going, but positivity is very important. So if you're going to have a team, or if you're going to have, any type of company, who does it start with? Well, it starts with you, right? So you are the first person. You are that main cog in this machine that you're building, and every other cog in this machine, or every other gear inside this machine, is going to turn when you turn, how you turn, in relation to the way that you're moving. So, you need to know who you are, right? Know what value you add. You need to know your strengths. You need to know your weaknesses, right? You need to know, and the number one thing you're really going to need to figure out is, am I a good leader? And not everybody's a good leader. And this is where most teams, or most agents, when they go to build a team, this is where most of them fail, is they fail in the leadership capacity, right? So if you know that you can't lead in this certain area, then set that expectation up front, right? What to expect from me and what I expect from you. Right. So set those expectations up front with, you don't necessarily have to go around and tell people, well, I'm not good at this, or I don't, I can't do this, or I don't know this. Right. But just set the expectation that this is what I'm good at. This is what I know. Right. And if you're good at the 20% Pareto principle of being an agent, then work around that. Right. Lead generation, lead follow up, going on appointments, writing contracts, and closing the contracts. If you can be good at those, then get really good at teaching those. Right. When you're, so when you're assessing yourself, you're going to, there's a couple of different formats that we use for assessing yourself. These are also the same things that you're going to use. So you're going to do a self-assessment here, but you're also going to, as you're working with people, or as you begin to bring people into your team, you're going to do these same assessments. And understanding these couple of different things are really going to help you understand who you're working with. Understanding yourself in these areas are going to help you figure out, okay, where are my strengths? So hopefully by now everybody's heard of the DISC profile. This is the number one thing that we're going to look at for ourselves and for our team, because what behaviors do we need to exhibit in order to be an effective leader of a team, right? Where do your strengths lie on this chart, and where do your weaknesses lie on this chart? And wherever your weaknesses are, that's where you're going to want to start filling people in right away, right? So if you're that CEO style dominant kind of personality, understand that about yourself. If you're not the CEO style dominant personality, and you bring in a team member on your team that is that CEO style dominant personality, right? You need to figure out, okay, how am I going to work with this person? Because that person wants to be the leader. That person wants to be in charge. That person wants to be calling the shots, right? And if you're a steadiness kind of person, if you're the S in there and you go and you bring on a D, you really need to figure out, how am I going to manage this person? Because this person they're like a steamroller. Right now, this is definitely somebody that you want on your team, because they're probably going to require a lower level of, of motivation to get them moving. But you need to understand that about them. We actually have a whole training on the DISC, and on the next, and then the other one is going to be the temperaments. So I'm going to recommend go back, look at the training on DISC, and look at the training that we've done on temperament, and it's going to do a deep dive into that, right? So once you've figured out, you can go online, you can search up a DISC profile. Once you've figured out who you are, right, figure out your strengths, your weaknesses, and figure out where you need to fill in those gaps, start bringing those team members in that have those other things, right? Well, going back one slide real quick. Social media is big, right? So who is probably the strongest personality individual that's going to do social media? Influence, right? That's why they call them an influencer, right? These are the social people. These are the people that love to be in front of the camera. These are the people that love to get out there and go do things, right? So if you don't like social media, but you want to promote your team on social media, then go out and find somebody that has that influence, right? And work it out with them. Hey, I've got all these leads. I'm really good at generating leads. I'm really good at closing deals. I'll coach you. I'll mentor you, right? And in exchange for that, you're going to come on my team and you're going to take care of our social media, right? So look at this. Where are you? Everybody's in a different place. Everybody has a different profile, and you're going to have more than one of these. I mean, everybody has a degree of all four of these. It's just which one is the dominant one, right? And which one is like, fourth on the list, right? Maybe, you're a strong D and a strong I, and then your S and your C is not so strong. Like you find somebody that's like sloppy and unorganized, then they do not have a strong C personality, right? So if you're a strong C, if you love numbers and you love spreadsheets and you love accounting, then you're probably going to need that DI person on your team. Conversely, if you're a strong D, you don't like numbers and details and all that stuff, you're going to need a strong C on your team. So, figure out your strengths and try to fill in your strengths or your weaknesses, this is why you need to know yourself, number one, and you need to know who you're bringing into your team, number two. Are you going to be able to work it out perfectly? Probably not, right? And then there's the temperaments. So the temperaments are similar to a personality, but they're not the same, right? So if you look here, like choleric might be similar to the D, dominant, right? Sanguine is going to be similar to the I, right? The phlegmatic, is similar to the S. And melancholic is similar to the C. So it's in that same order, but these are not the same things, right? You've got personality versus temperaments, right? So, so what it does is the disc will reveal how people behave, how they communicate, and how they want to be communicated to, right? And then these temperaments here help you to understand their emotional tendencies, right? So when you're looking at the temperaments, you're looking more at, their tendencies. Now there's tests for both of these, and it's very wise, to know yourself. So to take these tests for yourself, but it would also be wise to take to have people that would be coming onto your team take the test. And what do? Do you play to somebody's strengths or do you build their weaknesses? You play to their strengths, right? You're not going to teach a fish to fly, right? You're not going to teach a bird, to swim. You're not going to teach, a snake to swim, right? They all have their own strengths, so you're going to play to their strengths, right? Like, so, and after a while, once you've taken this test and you understand yourself, you're going to recognize this in people because you're going to observe them, right? And then you're going to figure out what their identity traits are, right? You're going to see them, and then what you're going to do is you're going to basically mirror and match when you're communicating with this person, because that's going to be the most effective way. For example, D compared to C. If you're talking, and this works for your customers, this literally works for everybody, right? Everybody falls into the DISC personality. Everybody falls into the temperaments. But let's say, for example, you're talking to somebody. Doesn't matter who they are. If you're talking to a D, right, a dominant person, but you're treating them like a C, right? You're treating them like an accountant. Their eyes are going to glaze over. They're going to pass out and they're going to die, because you're going to be giving them so much information, so much data, so much whatever. Maybe they'll be polite and listen, or maybe they're just going to say, you know what, you need to shut the heck up and just get to the point, right? Conversely, if you're talking to a C and you treat them like a D and you just get to the point, okay, here's what it is, here's that, boom, all right, sign here. They're going to have a million and one questions for you, right? So, observing people, going on that, that journey of trying to figure out, to find out who they are and being able to recognize these personalities and these temperaments in people, and being able to kind of morph your own personality to be able to effectively communicate with these people will make you a better leader, right? If you're on a listing appointment, if you're a listing agent and you're on a listing appointment and you're not prepared to shift your presentation for whatever type of personality and temperament you're talking to, you might fail. You may be the best person for the job, but because you didn't effectively communicate with them, you're not going to get that listing. So knowing who you're talking to is vitally, vitally important. And if you want to communicate effectively to your team, then you need to know who they are. People. People are the most important aspect of anything that you do, the people. And if you're building a team, if you're starting a team, if you're starting a company, you, the person, better know yourself better than anybody else knows you. You don't need to go around and tell people who you are, but you need to know who you are. Number two, platforms, right? So you start getting your people in place, or maybe you don't have your people in place yet, right? You're just starting to, do this, and it's going to take some time, some planning, right? For the agents in this office, a lot of these platforms that we're going to talk about, we already use them, right? And it's been through trial and error, trying to figure out what works, what does not work. They've been through a lot of pain with us. One thing that I do, and you'll see this later on, right? So we have a saying of constant and never-ending improvement. It's a Tony Robbins mindset, CANI. But we are constantly iterating. We are constantly making changes, not only to the way that we do things, but the tools that we use to do things. If somebody comes into YouTube and watches this training, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the line, God willing, we're still around. Some of these platforms that we use, we probably will not be using them, because if I come along with something that's better, that does something more efficient, more effective, that helps us to delegate tasks even easier, we're going to switch over, right? Agents that have been with us long enough, they've seen that we will switch over. And it's not always easy to switch over, but it's always in the name of improvement, because we always want to be more efficient. So the number one rule that we have, right? Choose a one login system that lets you manage everything: projects, communication, calendars, files, and team collaboration without jumping between apps. It is not efficient to use multiple platforms that don't communicate with each other. It is highly, highly inefficient, right? So here we really only have two logins, right? The number one is really, it's kind of Google, right? So the first thing that that we want to use are our platform for how do we manage our workflows and our processes in a way that we can make things visual, right? We used to use Trello. Trello was our one, and Trello was great. And they give you, you can have a free account with Trello, and you can create boards and you can share them. And this was how we did this originally. And what we found is it does have some restrictions. So we actually built out our own, right? So the first two are really our main ones for having visual systems, right? So, and to create these checklists. And if you don't have, right, SOPs, right? If you don't have your SOPs and you don't have your workflow checklist, right, then you're going to struggle to be consistent with your processes, right? You're going to struggle to be consistent with your systems. So we've actually built our own, or Irene built, I shouldn't say we, Irene built what we call agent resources. And all that is that's a website built through Google Sites. Pretty much you know, it's pretty much, you know, customizable. It's drag and drop, right? Header, context, link, image, right? You just kind of drag and drop everything that you want to be there. But this is where we can put every single system, every single process, every workflow, everything that's in my head can go into here, right? And what we do is we give this to the agents. So now they have all of our processes and all our systems. So as a team leader, if you're building a team, you're going to have your own processes, and you can come in and you can steal all of our stuff the way that we do it, right? You can take our stuff and you can put your own branding on it. We don't really care, right? We want to see you grow, right? But you know, when you become a team leader, you're going to have your own way of doing things. You're going to have your own processes, right? This brokerage is actually built perfectly for somebody to build a team, because we've already given you everything really that you need. You just want to put your own branding on it, right? The so-and-so agent team, right? The, you know, whatever you want to call it, right? You can call your team whatever, it doesn't matter. And then you just put your branding on it, right? So, you know, we've kind of taken a lot of the thinking out of having to build these processes and these workflows. For any agents that have worked with us with our in-house transaction coordinator, you know that there's processes and there's workflows. You know that, you know, there's stop gaps that we've put in place to help to ensure that these things are, you know, that things are being done, they're being done on time, and they're being done proper, right? But it's because of things like this right here. And Google Sheets, the agents don't see that on the back end of our processes and our workflows, but Google Sheets is huge for tracking these things and making sure that we're hitting, you know, hitting these things. Color codes. This is where your high C personality is going to thrive, right here. Building these processes inside the platforms. This is where your high C is going to thrive, right? What else do you need, right? What other platforms do you need? Well, you need to be able to communicate effectively with your team, right? Because if you have a team, you have more than one person that you might need to communicate with at the same time. If you have an admin on your team and you need to speak with your admin and an agent, it's not going to be effective to call the admin, hang up, call the agent, right? Because again, we're talking about virtual. You have a virtual team. So the number one platform that we choose or that we use for communicating is, well, actually, it's not even on here. It should be on here. Google Meet, right? Maybe that's in a different area. But yeah, Google Meet is actually our number one, and this is where we're at right now. So we have the lobby room, and the agents know, okay, when you need to communicate with us, if you need something from us, you're going to pop in with us. You're going to have the admin, you're going to have a broker, might be another agent in there. You know, might be a lot of different things in there, right? Outside of Google Meet, if there's a need, right? So a lot of times, you know, so we also have our culture, what we call, it's more of our culture communication area. This is where kind of everybody can communicate with everybody pretty much all at once. We love WhatsApp. We love WhatsApp. I love WhatsApp. I think, you know, it used to be, I don't know, some people think, you know, they prefer texting, and I get that, that's fine. But for me, WhatsApp, it's kind of that, it's a separate app that's really for business purposes. I think it makes a lot more sense than trying to put everybody just in a group text chat. You know, WhatsApp, it makes a lot more sense. So communicating to everybody all at once, if, you know, we'll put it out there. And this also allows the agents in the office, or if you have a team, the agents on your team, along with your administrative, you know, wing, everybody can communicate all at once, right? Hey, we just had an agent that needs some open houses done next weekend or this weekend. I don't know, one weekend. And the agent put it in there, right? And then a couple of people reached out to that agent and, you know, expressed that, you know, that they would be interested in doing an open house. If agents are looking to do an open house, they can put it in there, right? If there's a networking event, it can go in there. If there's a company event, it can go in there. Right now, we can get everything that you need to be able to disseminate information quickly and effectively, and WhatsApp does that for us. Outside of that, individually, there's also Google Chat. I love Google Chat. It's a secured connection where individually, if I'm working on my computer and my Gmail's open, somebody can message me on a Google Chat and boom, it's going to pop up right there. Larger files, if you need to share a larger file with me, you can just copy and paste it, put it in there. You can put a link in there, but you need to have systems, processes. You need to have a platform for communication, right? Not everybody's going to want to open emails all day. Your quick, fast information, how do you get it out? So Google Meet, we use, that's our don't stay stuck type of room, right? WhatsApp is to disseminate information very quickly, to have a little bit of culture where everybody can kind of interact with everybody, and then Google Chat is going to be kind of one-on-one, or we can create little rooms if we need to, for administration only or certain individuals only. It helps us to disseminate just kind of more secure maybe type of information. So this is how we use it. You could use Microsoft Teams, you could use Slack. We don't use those. Personally, not a fan of Microsoft. I'm a fan of Google because Microsoft charges you to use Office. Google doesn't charge you to use their version of Office that is also in the cloud, that you can collaborate as a team and change things live. For example, this Google Slides presentation right here, Irene ultimately builds them out. She does the big work. I go in and I make little changes, and that work reflects almost instantly on her end, and vice versa. So when we're building this out, it's very effective and it's very efficient for us to build out these presentations on Google. And as any agent in our office knows, we love Google. Google, you need to do things that are efficient and effective. Okay, now scheduling, right? Calendar. Agents also know stuff shows up in your calendar. You don't even know how it got there. We put it there, right? All of these trainings, they're just in your calendar. You can go into your calendar. You can use whatever calendar system you want. What do we use? We use Google Calendar. Why do we use Google Calendar? Because we use Google for everything. And Google makes everything way more efficient, right? So, your Google Calendar events, you can put your Google Meet link right inside there. Boom, now it brings you there, right? You can put a link to, Google Docs. You can put a link to pretty much whatever you want. So, but a calendar system, look, if you don't have a calendar system already, you need to figure that one out right now, right? Because if, there's a saying, if it's not in your calendar, it doesn't exist. So if you have a meeting, you have an appointment, and you didn't put it in your calendar, you're already messed up. You're already messed up, man. And the nice thing about Google is you can share your calendar. So I can actually go in and I can see the calendar of anybody that's shared their calendar with me. So for example, if I have a team and I have a listing appointment, let's say it's, Thursday at noon, and I need a member of my team to go with me on that listing appointment. So I can go in and I can check the box and I can go look at their calendar and I can see, okay, which agent is available to go with me on a listing appointment Thursday at noon. And then I can create the calendar event in my calendar. I can add them and it's automatically going to populate into their calendar. And they'll get a notification, they'll get an email notification where they can say yes, no, or maybe to my invitation. I don't know why they wouldn't want to go on a listing appointment with me, but just in the off chance that they don't, they can say no, and then I'll just go in and I'll go find another agent that can do it. But a calendar system is very, very important. Now that you're a team leader, now that you have agents, right, you need to make sure that you're organized. They don't read your mind. They don't know where you're going to be Thursday at noon. They don't know that you set that appointment. So you need to make sure that you let them know. And the most effective way to communicate that to them is going to be by being able to just see their calendar, then be able to see your calendar as well, because they may need to put something in your calendar. As a team leader, you can't make it so easy for them to put things in your calendar because you're in high demand. You've got, not only now are you working in your business, but now as a team leader, you need to be working on your business. So you need those office hours as well. So you need to protect your calendar, but you need to be able to see the calendars of the agents and make sure that they're that they are utilizing their calendar to the full extent. My calendar is color coded, right? So, you know, for example, red is like urgent. That's something must do. If I have an appointment, listing appointment, buyer appointment, you know, a money making red is my money making activity. Maybe it should be green, but it's red. It's been red forever. That's what, you know, what I'm programmed to look at. My wife's stuff is actually in my calendar and it's purple, right? Stuff that comes in from my other calendars, because I've got, you know, a few different calendar systems a few different emails that I use for different calendars. Those will come in and those will be yellow, right? So come up with, you know, if you have, you know, family events, those can be green. So come up with your own color coding system. And that way you can look at your calendar and you can say, okay, yeah, my wife, you know, I see all the purple stuff on my calendar, but I know that those aren't my appointments. So I need to see, okay, does she have a, you know, I don't know, a doctor's appointment or a dentist appointment coming up, you know, something there, but, you know, that's her appointment, but at least I can say, hey babe, how's your doctor's appointment go today? Right? Because just because you're a highly successful real estate, you know, team leader, can't forget about your family. You got to remember your family. So you need to be able to track what they're doing as well. What else do we need? We need CRM. So CRM is your central command. If your brokerage doesn't offer a CRM, well, number one, that's a big problem. If your brokerage doesn't offer an effective CRM, that's also a problem, right? So one of the reasons that, well, in November, we started switching over from one CRM and now we use another one. And by signing up for this one CRM, we offered a CRM to our agents, and it was a good CRM. It was fine. It did basic, you know, the basic things that we needed it to do, but it didn't do everything that we needed it to do. So myself as a team leader, not as the broker, but as a team leader, I was subscribing to about 11 other apps and cloud programs and different things in order to do everything that I needed to do to effectively basically, you know, market for leads, market listings, do all these things. The CRM that we signed up for now allowed me to actually cancel all of those other subscriptions. And then we're able to share this with the agents in our office. So if an agent in our office were to decide that they wanted to run a team, we can actually set them up their own team account, where now they would have like an ownership of sub accounts of the agents that are on their team. And everything that I previously was doing that we couldn't necessarily offer to all of the agents in the brokerage because the CRM wasn't capable of it, now we can offer that to our agents, and those agents can offer that to the agents that are on their team, right? For example, the last CRM, you couldn't post to social media. It didn't have like automated posts that, you know, were just created and posted for you automatically. And, you know, it didn't have the ability, if you have a listing, to share those listings directly to social media. It didn't have the ability to share those listings directly through like text message, like a text blast or an email blast. Those were things that individually, so we subscribed to a company called Listings to Leads, and they did all of those things for us. Now we don't need Listings to Leads because our CRM does it, right? So your CRM, your customer relation manager, is your central command, right? It's your central command. It is the most important thing besides your cell phone and your email, because communication is number one. But besides that, the CRM is the most important tool that you have as a real estate agent, because all of your systems and processes are going to kind of hover around your CRM. Everything you do, all of your systems and processes are all going to come back to your CRM. Your calendar tells you need to call and follow up with somebody. Well, your CRM should back that up, right? You know, the automations, the set it and forget it things, the stuff that, okay, a lead came in, you know, and you're not going to call them for 6 months. Well, you don't want to lose touch with that lead for the next 6 months. You want to put them into some sort of campaign where they're going to automatically get emails, not too many because you don't want them to unsubscribe, and maybe even get a couple of text messages in between. Again, not too many because you don't want them to, say stop, but enough that when you call them 6 months later, when they are finally ready to list or they're ready to buy, that they still remember your stinking name because you've been touching base with them, right? Most important thing with the CRM is make sure you keep up with it. You got to keep up with it, right? Keep it clean, keep it organized, keep the tags proper, right? When you call somebody, take notes. If you go on an appointment, put the notes in there, right? Schedule your follow-ups, schedule the campaigns that you want them to be in. Do all of these things, and the CRM will ensure that your leads, your past clients, your sphere of influence, none of those fall between the cracks, right? So, and we're going to talk about how all of this comes together for your team as well, right? So, and then how are we, all right, so next, how are we going to disseminate, information that, that we have, things that let's say, for example, you have a training process. You should have a training process. You should have an onboarding process. When an agent comes in, you should have an onboarding process. But you shouldn't necessarily have to manually go through that process every time. Now, there's going to be some time that's going to be spent, right? But what do? Well, you should probably create videos on your processes, right? You can create little walkthrough videos for example, onboarding. Right? So when an agent comes in, and they onboard into the company, now you would do this as a team leader as well, right? But when an agent comes in and onboards coming onto your team, you need to have a way that they can come in and you say, okay, here's your checklist, right? So we broke our onboarding up into 3 different things, right? It's basically like you're building a house. So we're building an agent, but because we sell real estate, right, we're going to make it a house. You build the foundation first, then you build the framing of the house, and then once, then you finish the house, and then now you're standing at the front door. Right, now you can go in. So, it's the same thing for bringing an agent into your team, right? All of your systems that you use, you need to have a way, a simple way, to onboard that agent into that, and it needs to be easily duplicatable. Everything that you do needs to have a process. If you do it once, that's fine. If you do it twice, it's probably okay. But if you do it 3 times and you didn't create a system or a process, then you're working harder than you need to. You need to create your systems and your processes. Now, this applies to whether you have a virtual team, whether you have an in-person team, whether you have whatever, right? Like, not everything we're talking about is just to get you around virtual, but systems and your processes, disseminating files, large files, trainings, onboardings, all of those different things. You need to have a platform. They say, okay, here's the link. Here's everything you need to do. When you get this done, let me know, and we'll go from there, right? So, and you're going to build it out from there, right? So now you have your team, right? You have your tools. What's the next thing, right? I've been saying the word processes over and over and over, right? Like, well, that's the next thing that we're going to talk about is processes, right? So you need to start building out processes or systems, whatever you want to call it, right? You want, and you need to be able to, number one, everything that you do should have a system. It should be systematized. It should have checklists. It should have videos. It should be something that you build it once and then you can just pass it along. Build it once, pass it along. Build it once, pass it along. Whatever it is, contract to closing checklist. Here's your contract to closing checklist. By the way, we have one already. Just steal ours. You don't need to recreate the wheel. But if you don't have one, then you need to create one. Right? So where does that start with, right? So your processes. So number one, you have a team. Everybody on their team needs to know their roles and responsibilities. They need to know this is your job, right? If this item gets missed, that's on you, right? So we're going to come talk to you. Number 2, your workflows and contingencies, right? First A, then B, then C, then D, right? Workflow and contingencies, very, very important. Everybody needs to know, right? Their roles and responsibilities, and then they need to have their systems, right? Number 3, KPIs. These are very important as a team leader. You need to review your agent's KPIs regularly. And number 4, follow up and check in. As a team leader, if you're not following up, if you're not checking in on your agents, if you're not looking at their KPIs, if you're not holding them accountable to their workflows and contingencies, if you're not making sure that they're doing their roles and responsibilities, it's going to fail, right? So, for example, roles and responsibilities. Well, where would that start? Well, you might have an admin, you might not. If you don't have an admin, you should have a TC, right? Because as a team leader now, you don't have time to manage your own transactions. You sure as heck don't want to be managing your agent's transactions, right? But what agents are we working with, right? Well, you could have a rental agent, you could have a buyer's agent, you could have a listing agent, you could have an investor's agent, or they could overlap, right? Maybe, okay, you're renters and buyers, right? You're listings and investors. As the team leader, generally speaking, and this isn't 100% of the time, but as a team leader, you should be the listing agent on your team, right? You're also what's called the rainmaker. The team leader is the rainmaker. The team leader is the person who, what do? You make it rain, man. You make it rain. What does that mean? You're raining leads all over your team. So if you're a listing agent, that should be a lead source. Your buyer's agents should be hosting open houses, right? Your buyer's agents, let's say you're a listing agent and you have a homes.com account. You would subscribe to a premium account on homes.com so you get all the leads from your specific listings in homes.com. By the way, we do that. I think it's a great idea, although it's a little slow right now, but it used to be an amazing source. But those leads, and through, like we talked about, your CRM, lead comes into your CRM, it's going to be tagged as a buyer, and that should automatically call one of your buyer's agents, right? That should automatically call one of your buyer's agents. Now, what does the buyer's agent do when the lead comes in? Well, what should you have for that? You should have a process, right? And, so just as an example of what that process should look like. So let's say you have 3 buyer's agents, because you've got so many buyer's leads. So the lead comes in, the phone rings, right? And automatically it's gonna pop up on their app. There's going to be a, next slide, please. There's going to be a CRM trigger, right? That's going to automate this. So the call will come into you. You're going to answer it. You're going to accept the lead. It's going to call out to the person. They're going to answer the phone, right? They're also going to get a simultaneous text message. And then your app is also going to give you a push notification so that when you're calling them, you'll see, okay, this person's calling about 123 Main Street, right? It's gonna set them up into an action plan and a drip campaign automatically, right? You've engaged with them, and you're gonna figure out, are they junk, archive, watch, reassign, or continue, right? So, and you're gonna figure out where are they at in this whole thing. But this process, this is what you're monitoring to make sure that your buyer's agents are actually doing what they're supposed to do, right? And it's broken it all down, right? We break it all down: lead nurture, complete the activities, convert the lead, right? What's a conversion, right? What's a conversion? Well, conversions are your KPIs, right? Conversions are your KPIs. Your KPIs, your key performance indicators, are what you're looking at with your agents, right? So everybody has a role, right? And we can stay on this slide, but thinking back 2 slides, right? Thinking back 2 slides, you've got the buyer's agent, you've got a listing agent, you've got the rental agent and the investors, right? Everybody has a role, right? And inside that role, when a lead comes in, there's going to be a certain workflow that's going to happen with that. For example, this one, if it's for a listing agent, maybe you need to add in there that, you know, they're going to create some sort of property valuation. Our CRM, the one that we use, once a month, will, as long as the address and everything's correct, will automatically send a homeowner the value of their home, right? Similar to the Google's estimate. And that's a huge conversion tool. I can tell you that everybody wants to know what their house is worth. They want to know what's sold in their neighborhood, right? So if you set this up proper, you're giving value to that lead, right? So you need to make sure that that agent understands the workflow. And how do you do that? You're looking at KPIs, right? Now, KPIs, when you're looking at them, what are they? We talked about Pareto's principle, the 20%. 20% of what you do leads to 80% of your results. Well, this is your 20%. 5 things: lead generate, lead follow-up, go on appointment, write contracts, close the contracts. Now, there's a lot more inside each of those, right? But if this is your job as your number one job as an agent is lead generation. As a team leader, your number one job is lead generation. If you're not generating leads as an agent, if you're not generating leads as a team leader, you're going to fail. Why? Because if you don't generate a lead, if you don't have a lead, you don't have business. The lead is your product, right? Or it's the service that you offer goes to that lead, right? The sellers have the house that you need to sell. The buyers have the money that you need to sell that house that the seller needs to sell, right? So if you don't have a seller, if you don't have a buyer, you don't have a renter or a landlord, what do you have, right? You've got a schedule full of a bunch of crap that, I need to, do this, design this thing. Okay, great, but it better lead to what? It better lead to receiving a lead, right? Whatever you do should be geared around getting leads. Now, in the beginning, it's a little bit harder, but if you're building a team, if we're talking about building a team, then you better get good at lead generation, because you're what? You're the rainmaker, right? So what are we looking at? Lead generation, how many hours on the phone? How many dials? How many contacts, right? So lead generation, lead follow-up, going on appointments, listing appointments, right? How many converted to listings? How many converted to buyers, right? Contracts, how many listing agreements were signed? How many buyer agency contracts were signed, right? Closing the deal, how many were actually closed, right? This is your 80% no matter what if you're an agent. And it starts with lead generation, lead follow-up, which are the first 3. Then going on appointments, right? Then writing contracts, then closing those deals. This is what you focus on. If your agents are doing the first 3, right, and they're not getting to the next, then you need to do some skill building with them, right? So, how do you know if they're doing well? Look at their conversion rates. How do you know? How do you figure out their conversion rates? Here's the math. Here it is right here. Take a picture of that, and that's going to tell you exactly their conversion rates. It's a little bit of work, but you need to know what agents, right? How many hours are you dialing to, to actually, reach people, right? So how many dials divided by valid contacts, right? How many contacts are actually leading to listing appointments? How many are leading to buyer consultations, right? How many appointments are leading to actual agreements, right? A buyer agency agreement, a listing agreement. How many of those are actually getting the as-is contract, getting a purchase contract? And how many of those contracts are actually closing? This is going to tell you where your gaps for your team are. Actually, this will tell you where the gaps for yourself are, right? Because if you only have numbers on number 1 and number 2, and you got a bunch of zeros for the rest of those, then that means 2 things. You either need to do more of number 1 and number 2, the hours, the dials, and the contacts, or you need to get better at doing number 1 and number 2, right? So, and how do you know that? Well, the hours versus the dials, if you're dialing for 5 hours a day for 6 months straight, but you're not getting any valid contacts, well, you might have a problem. Now you say, okay, is it because people aren't answering the phone, or is it because I don't have a proper opening script, right? So practice your scripts, right? These numbers tell the story. These numbers tell you exactly what you need to know. But what do you need? You need that C-style personality to want to do these numbers, right? So your admin should probably be a C-style personality. And if your admin's not a C-style, this is going to be sloppy. They ain't going to be able to keep up with it. We've got the world's greatest C admin in the entire world in this brokerage. I'm telling you, man, like if you guys know Irene, like she is absolutely amazing with all of this stuff. So, you know, we appreciate all of that. Like, you know, she knows better what's going on with the agents in her office probably than I do. And I shouldn't admit that, but it's probably true. You got to give credit where it's earned, right? So then what do? You got all these numbers, you got all these stats, right? You got to check in, right? You got to be a coach. You got to be a mentor to your agents. You have to teach them. You have to teach your agents, right? So what are you going to talk about? And this is just general, right? Like, you know, obviously this is going to get a lot deeper, right? But you're going to talk to them, you know, and ask them, what do you feel like you're doing great, right? Where are you stuck? Are you practicing scripts with the role-playing partner? As a team leader, if you only have one agent on your team, you should be their role-playing partner, right? Is there anything we can do better, right? And then you're going to flip it, and you're going to tell them what they're doing great, and you're going to show them where they're stuck. By how? By going back and looking at those KPIs, right? You're gonna if you're not already scripting and role-playing with your team member, you should be. So you're going to say, we're going to start doing this. Every morning from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., we're going to do what's called a power hour. And we're going to role play and script. Guess what? We do that in the brokerage already, right? And then you're going to give them suggestions and comments, right? And all of this, just remember, there's the feedback sandwich approach. You need to use the feedback sandwich approach. You know, like me, I'm a D personality. So I just want to get to the point. I just want to say, yeah, you know what, on the call, you didn't ask this question. You need to work on that. And you need to fix this. And this needs to be better. And this needs to be this. But people are going to be like, holy crap, Joe thinks I suck. It could have been a perfectly good call. But so what do? You give them good. You give them the feedback, the constructive criticism, and then you give them something good again. Hey, you know what? That was a really good call. You opened it. That opening was really strong. I like the way that, when the person said this, that you said this. I think next time what you might try is saying it a little bit different, maybe put it, in these kind of terms and here, but overall, that was an amazing call. That call was, that was a really good call. If you had every call hit all those notes, I think you're going to do, really well. So I started off with what you did well, gave them some feedback, and then what you did well again, right? So they're going to be more receptive that way. And now you're giving them double compliments. Don't forget, when you're giving people feedback, don't just tell them what they need to improve. Make sure they also know what they're doing right. It's very important to let people know what they're doing right. Make people feel good, right? And that is a perfect seg into the last part, positivity. Positivity. There is nothing, well, I don't know this to be true, but I believe it to be true. It might be true. Somebody probably said it one time, right? But what will destroy a company faster than anything? A bad culture. Having people on your team that don't respect you, having people on your team that feel you don't respect them, having people on the team that are doing great, but you don't acknowledge the greatness of what they're doing, it's a recipe for failure. You need to do these things right here. Culture of recognition. This is why, we try very hard to be agent-centric in this brokerage. We try very hard, and it comes from the top down. I'm not the best at it because I'm a guy, I'm a man. Like men, this is not always our strength to, just be like that. Some men are good at it. I'm okay at it, I think. But, but our administrative team is amazing at this, and they make sure that I don't drop the ball on it, right? But you celebrate the victories. You praise publicly. Now, that being said, you don't correct publicly. right? You don't make somebody feel like crap about something that they did in front of everybody. That ain't gonna go well, right? So you correct privately. If there's an issue with somebody, you correct them privately. You don't, what that's one-on-one, man. You coach them. Why? Because you're the team leader, right? There's nothing wrong with healthy competition. We do it. We do healthy competition. Our peak performers, it's a little bit of healthy competition where we can, recognize the people that did great, and hopefully that encourages everybody else to say, wow, I want to be on there, right? I want to be that. I want to be a peak performer, right? People need something, you coach them. You see it, you help them right now. You make them better than you. I tell people all the time, look, I can't, if you have huge, big, gigantic dreams, I don't know if I can get you there, but I can get you at least as far as I am, right? At least as far as I've made it. And I haven't done too bad in life, right? So, I can at least get you there. And don't compete with your team. They're not your competition. You don't, the team leader, in my opinion, shouldn't be the top selling agent on the team. The team leader shouldn't be selling more real estate than everybody. The team leader should be helping their team to rise. If you're building people and you do these things, right? If you do these things, then people will stay with you. They'll appreciate you. They'll be loyal. They will, because they know that you care, right? And then don't forget, look, we're talking about virtual, right? But don't forget, you need to do things in real life, right? You need real life connections. You need to be doing things. So, we do real stuff in this brokerage, on my team, right? We do stuff in real life. We try to do at least something once a month. Sometimes we'll do it twice a month. I don't know if we've ever done it 3 times a month, because it's, planning things takes a lot of work. But, we are people, we are emotional creatures, right? So, and bottom line with your culture, right? There's a meme out there. You can Google this. You can find it. I don't know who created this meme in the first place, but, it's like the CFO and the CEO. The CFO asked the CEO, what happens if we train these people to be great and they leave us? Well, and then the CEO will respond, what happens if we don't and they stay? Right? And then Richard Branson, his quote, which is based on this thing, right? Train people well enough so they can leave, and treat them well enough so that they don't want to. That's the goal right there. That's the goal right there. Make people marketable, make people great, lift them up, help people be the best version of themselves that they can absolutely be, help people achieve their dreams, help people achieve their goals, right? Be selfless in it, right? Now they have options. Crap, right? They've sold, $6, $7, $8, $9, $10 million worth of real estate. I know there's agents in this office that get called from other brokerages. They don't tell me about it, but I guarantee it, because we've got some amazing agents in this office. A couple of them are on the call right now. So, I know that they're getting calls from other brokerages, and we want to continue to just make them great. And I'm okay that other brokerages, it's actually a compliment, right? Because we know that we're helping our agents to achieve a level that they are attracting attention to themselves. And that's what this is about. It's about everybody else. If you're going to be a team leader, virtual or in person, you need to make sure that you don't make it about yourself. Your name might be on the team. It might be the John Smith real estate team, right? But it's not about you. It's about your agents. If you take care of other people, they will take care of you. So what are you going to do, right? How do you implement all of this? I just gave you a fire hose to drink out of. Number one, you're going to start. You're going to start. Right? So look at, if you were to have a team right now, what type of team structure do you have? Do you have a team structure at all? Do you have a way to implement these things? Do you have, the systems and the tools in place, or do you need to start building those out? As an agent, you should have the tools and the systems at least. You might not have the people, right? But it's possible to have the tools, and it's possible to have the processes, right? And if it's not efficient, you got to figure out how to make it efficient. You got to figure it out. If you don't have an admin, start with the TC. That's your first step. Your first step is to hire a transaction coordinator. right? You should not be managing your own transactions, and make sure it's an effective transaction coordinator, because I've been through a lot of transaction coordinators, and let me tell you, they are not created equal, right? There's no reason why you can't track your own performance. Start by tracking yourself so that now you have a baseline for what the numbers should be when you bring in what? Your first agent. Right? So these are things that you're going to do if you don't have a team right now. And then, we're talking about virtual. I showed you how to manage everything in a virtual way, just like they're in person. But all of this is going to start with you, right? That's why the very first thing, when we were on that first P, people, that first person was you. You should have systems. You should have processes. Right? You should have an ability to track your own performance, right? You should know who you are. You should know what triggers you. You should know what makes you effective. You should know your weaknesses. You should definitely know your strengths. You should know, when somebody comes in, this is the type of person that I need. You are one person away from achieving everything you ever wanted. You find that one running partner. You find that one person that complements you. You find that one person that's willing to run the race with you, that, they recognize you as the leader, but they're also there they also know that the leaders need to be pushed. The leaders need to be motivated. The leaders need to be lifted up. You find that person, they fill in the gaps where you're weak. You'll be highly successful. And a team doesn't necessarily mean that, a team could be two agents that say, hey, all of our business, we're just going to split it 50-50. Right? That's more like a joint venture, but there's no rules on a team. And the last thing, iterate. Constantly iterate. You need to always be improving your systems. You need to always be improving the tools that you use. You need to always be improving your communication. Everything that you do as a leader needs to be constantly and never-ending improvement. Right? That's that CANI, the CANI, right? Constant and never-ending improvement. You need to constantly be doing that. So you're always iterating. You're always looking for a better way. You're always looking for a more efficient way. You're always looking for, a way to delegate another task, to take something else off your plate, so that you're not working on your business and you can be so you're not working in your business and you can be working on your business. That's what you need to do. Hopefully that was helpful. Before we end here, I know we're a little bit over on time. I'm sorry, but does anybody have any questions? Anything I didn't go over? Anybody have any, any questions? All right, very cool. Then we explained it all. Last thing. So this was our Ask the Broker. We do these on the second and fourth Tuesdays of every month. There's always a different topic. This is where I talk for literally the entire time. I try to give a high level of training, something to take people to that next level, something that maybe isn't common knowledge, and something that, people would normally probably have to pay for coaching in order to receive this information. The next training that we're going to have is actually, it's going to be our roundtable mastermind. These are on the first and third Tuesdays of every month. So the next training is going to be a mastermind. And this is where, we talk about whatever everybody in the room wants to talk about. It's roundtable, which means everybody's able to contribute. It's an open, free-flowing format. Sometimes I'll bring a little, thought-provoking idea or bring a question to the table. But if we end up talking about something totally different, which happens a lot, totally okay. So, agents in the office, you've got the link. You've got a couple agents that are not of the office. You're more than welcome to come here and join. We really just want to have as many collaborative minds in these as possible. And I'll tell you, I've been doing this a long time, but even I learned things inside these. There's some really good stuff that gets passed along in there. So that's all we got. One final shameless plug. If you're interested, want to learn more about the company, you can scan the QR code. If you're not interested, hey, no pressure. You're always welcome to come back anytime. Our next Ask the Broker is going to be on July 8th. Topic to be determined, I guess. But that's it, everybody. Thank you so much. Appreciate everybody coming out. I know some people had to leave early. No worries. This is recorded. You can find it on YouTube. Miranda Executive Realty is the page. Otherwise, for everybody else, if you need anything, don't stay stuck. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care.